We're going to talk about Waterfall to the DevSecOps in DoD. Actually, Waterfall DevSecOps in almost everywhere. It's not in DoD. And who has the Waterfall in your organization besides DoD? It's a common practice everywhere, right? It's not a surprise. So first of all, I would like to apologize. Nick Chaillan, he's not able to make the travel, and he was busy for other commitments, and he wasn't able to travel. So I'm going to cover up his part as well, and my part too. So we're going to be hearing me instead of Nick, but I can pronounce it Nick. Let's continue. This is our legal. I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody read it? Good. We can continue now. That's a legal requirement. That's what exactly what a waterfall it is, right? We just have to get the things done. Before that, I would like to talk about who we are as an SCI, Software Engineering Institute. It's part of Carnegie Mellon University. I'm working over there. And SCI is known since 1984, and actually start from the CERT, 1988, as CERT was the first emergency response team in the world as part of CMU. So SCI is a federal funded research lab, and our mission is really help to mainly DoD, or mainly whoever has any issues and problem in the software engineering context. And we have about 650 employees. So we have 2 main offices in Pittsburgh and DC, but we have other offices as well throughout the United States. So anybody knows the CMMI waterfall? I'm sure all the DoD folks know the CMMI, right? Some of the people are saying you are the creators in SCI problem in the domain because CMMI was forcing more about the waterfall issue. I don't know, but we'll talk about it. And let's continue. And CMU is part of SCI. I'm sorry, SCI is a non-degree program. So we're not giving any degree as part of CS or ECE. But however, we are a research organizations under CMU. Then our main focus is helping any, mainly DoD has said, helping any big complex system to develop a software on timely and securely and affordably. So our mission is really build up the process, build up the techniques, build up the ideas, and so we can deliver the software on time. We can deliver the software with high quality. So that's how the CMMI actually came up in old days, and especially for the complex systems, then SCI was tasked from DoD directly, build up a modules or process. We can build up a very complex system. That's how the CMMI starts. Now we have more, we dropped the CMMI. CMMI is not part of SCI anymore. So we drop it and give it to the Institute. Now we are working DevOps. So in the DoD context, we really help to build up either DHS and DoD and look to any type of hard problems that we are hearing. Hard problems are sometimes specific to the software component or a system level, and build up a proof of concept or prototype in using a leverage of research. Research is basic from Carnegie Mellon University's CS departments, including AI perspective, including machine learning, including any type of complex or real-time embedded systems and real-time softwares, and how build up the safety critical component in the software world. That's who we are. So Nick, he's not able to make it, and that's his bios, and he's the Chief Software Officer of Air Force. He has a long experience in the DevSecOps and DevOps world. And this is me, by the way, right? I really felt the DevOps speed. That's the true pictures. So when I say DevOps speed, and my journey started from Waterfall. And when I write the program first time, it was 1993, I was using Waterfall. And comparing that Waterfall eras, how we deploy quickly right now with a DevOps mindset, that's the physical, tangible things I felt it. So this is basically wind tunnel, and one of the vendors set up the comparing how fast we can deploy the code quickly. They put a wind tunnel, they kind of simulated the deployment frequencies, and frequencies we are deploying twice in a year, sometimes once in a year. Now we are deploying in a millisecond, and represented in a kind of a model, the speed that you're driving a car, and no window, everything is open, like a motorcycle, so wind blowing to the face. Now, if you open up your mouth, you're breaking the security. So I was trying to close my mouth, don't break the security. If I do, I'm going to break that. That means we're not able to deploy it. That's my journey. So I was able to success what was very hard. It took me like 6 seconds. I was breathless. It was very tough. Now think about the waterfall and DevSecOps. It's even tougher than that. All right. So let's see why DevSecOps in DoD. I'm sure DoD folks know reasons, right? Why? Let's start that. Because DoD is really different. Why is different? We are not really, as a DoD, we are not building the software every time. As a DoD, we are getting a software, and we are not able to have a controlled environments that we are acquiring a software. So when we do that, when we try to go in more sustainment phase, more operational phase, it's becoming very challenging for us. Same is true for every highly regulated organization. Every organization are in a situation that you're not able to maintain the software you're getting it. Like maintaining means patching. Maintaining means like having a new release. It's very challenging in DoD because we cannot release on time. We cannot find out any vulnerabilities in the systems, because once you acquire the software, it is yours. It is ours. We have to really make sure that we have a right process to build up and component go further. Let's a little bit deep dive on it. So it's requiring a modern software practices to establish a full sustainment pipeline. Let's look at another analogy, why is important. This is the study came from naval special warfare groups. They've kind of compared DoD versus private sector. If you look at the numbering, the bottom section right here, this is kind of like a kind of scale. So private industry has less people, but they will produce more. So if you look at this one, this is important pieces. So we, as a DoD, we are not able to get the work on time with the right resources. So we have so much resources in DoD, but we cannot able to deliver on time. And we have so much bureaucracy as well. When we look at the resources-wise and process, we have so much process burden in DoD versus less process in private sectors. And also approval process is important. Like it looks like we are approving everything in DoD, but indeed, we are slowing the process a lot when we try to approve the stuff. So because we are doing so much paperwork in the approval process. And these are the couple write-ups from the code, either the Frank Kendall and also the Alan Lord, and we're describing we have to change our acquisition policies to make that happen. Because as I said at the beginning, DoD is more acquiring the software. That starts from the acquisition path. That's the first journey. And in terms of Waterfall to DevSecOps, we start from acquisition process. How can we change the culture and mindset? We can acquire effectively, put in the right policies and practices, then we can build up the software at the beginning. Again, let's continue our journey. These are typical problems in DoD. Very familiar, right? So many problems like how we are building, how we are deploying, how we are integrating. These are the numbers, true numbers actually. I want to see the program name. These are the true numbers. I saw worse than that. Like look at the big numbers. Sometimes takes integration months, even years. It's really surprising. When we try to buy the one component from one vendor, get another vendor, try to integrate it, it's all manual process. It's error prone. There is no any parity between environments. If there is no parity, how do you do the testing? How do you do the integration? Because the environment is really mismatching. And most of the time, going back to the acquisition, when we acquire the software, we are getting a bunch of documentation, a long documentation for installation, configurations, and stuff. And some of the program has 3,000 pages for a deployment, for installing. 3,000 pages, I'm not kidding. 3,000 pages manual process. If you try to build up, it takes years sometimes. So this is the problem, what we are seeing so far with the waterfall approach, with that mentality. So what is the solution now? It's a DevSecOps. That's what the DoD is going that direction, solve this problem with the context of DevSecOps. And everybody say why DevSecOps is important, because we can go to DevOps, we can go to DevSecOps, but literally we have to start with DevSecOps when we are trying to build a DevOps component together. We don't want to ignore the security as part of DevOps. It should be part of it. Doesn't matter when you call, you may say SecDevOps, you may secure DevOps, you may call any other name, but in reality, we have to get the security into the DevOps process, into the software delivery lifecycle, because, and DoD folks know specifically, it takes longer to get ATO process, authority to operate. If you're not able to approve any application that goes into the production environment, no matter how you grade, you cannot really push into production. To get the approval process, it's a lengthy process. It's another long talk which we'll be covering later on, but to get the RMF, to get the ATO, sometimes years, sometimes more than 12 months and 13 months, we see that, maybe some 24 months. So to achieve that, we have to put the security into the application lifecycle. That's using the DevSecOps. But it's not that easy, right? These are the barriers we have been seeing so far. Again, so much barriers to implement it. Legacy systems, complex systems, real-time embedded systems, and team culture, incentives. Every little bullet point takes hours to talk about it, but this is kind of like a very high level understanding what are the barriers are. Legacy systems, as I said, very problematic problem. Let's go back here again. And organizational structures, blame frame cultures, and it's very challenging implemented. So let's see how we implement it in one of the programs under DoD. So one of the programs I have been working closely, then we are able to implement DevSecOps, but it took 6 years. Again, if you're looking for a 130 days or 180 days to get DevSecOps, you're wrong. It will take time. Okay, don't really say that, hey, I'll get a pipeline, I'll build up the pipeline, everything is working great, the pipeline. Are you able to put the first hello world in your pipeline? Then you will see a success. You will see how much problem it is, how much will take time to get a first app put in your pipeline. So don't really put yourself, I can get in pipeline ready, I can next day, maybe next month with the one sprint, I can do that. No, it's not that true. It's a real story. Let's continue. So the first phase that program adapted, and first things, understanding agile culture, risk management framework. That goes really hand in hand together. Anybody knows what the risk management framework is? 800-37. So if you look at closely, 800-37 says so you have to have an iterative incremental development process to achieve the RMF in place, which is the 6 steps. So 6 steps clearly say you have to increment it, incremental, iterative development to understand the risk controllers and implement risk controllers in your pipeline and monitor it, get data back to it. So it goes very hand in hand together. So program build up the agility and RMF together. And build up the team culture. I kind of highlighted which important points. Build up the team culture. And then when we build that team culture, the focus was the business value. What the business value are for the component, what the warfighter end user will use at end of the delivery, end of the product. Really tie the mission specific as a business value. A requirement is going to be more business value. If the requirements is done properly with the right business value, you can deploy quickly in the production environment because people like that, which is end user will like that. And build up the minimal viable software delivery pipeline. You cannot really boil the ocean at the beginning. This organization did a first repository, like a code repository was the first step to build up. And I saw many DoD programs, they have multiple code repositories. The vendor has another one, integration team has another one, dev team has another one. Build up a single code repositories. Build up the first step as the build environment. The first step they have done it. And then they were focusing more agile and security as a team culture. You had the pipeline, the first minimal viable product, and also agile and secure that you can really build up the component together. Next phase was maturing the process by putting the people and agile process according together. Like, I know we started with agile, and now how can we implement the Kanban or Scrumban and using that in details? Expand that group of the team together and building up a right component, getting agile coaches into the team. So again, if you're getting agile coaches in your team, you don't have a proper pipeline, you cannot build up components. That goes hand in hand together. Now you're building more integrations, more continuous integration, more continuous code repositories, and more work, less documentations. Right? We don't want to create more documentation, but we would like to create documentation in the context of DevOps pipeline, in the context of the code itself. And this group specifically, they took so many notes as a markdown language. So they were not writing documents. They were not really writing in specific Word documents, but what they were doing taking a lesson learned, or even the writing requirements in a markdown language that wasn't part of repositories. Why? Because almost every code repository is able to process the Markdown language, like MD, and you can generate any type of documentation from your pipeline, from your repositories. That's how they change it. They usually build up the path to production, like starting from the beginning, able to push the first code into the production environment, right? The next step is more architectures. Now the team really realized that having a pipeline is not enough. You can build up something from scratch, from ground up, it's easy. When you try to go into a brownfield, you have a systems, now you have to maintain the systems, it is requiring architectural changes now. When you think about architectural changes, now we are talking about the containerization concept or Kubernetes, it's heavy dependent on architectural changes. If your architecture is not able to support for iterative incremental development, you cannot really push the DevOps. That this organization build up a modular architectures, moving to the microservices concept, and then building up a SRE in the infrastructure team. Now, infrastructure team is part of that component, and they are able to build up, get the code as the containerized version, and then push into the production environment. Basically, every contracts have SLA and SLOs. So they build up as a team, the team is able to define, here's my SLA, and infrastructure team is able to achieve that based on what SLA says that. And also introducing a audit versus gatekeeper. Like a security team, they were part of the team, they were part of the dev team, not really blocking the deployment, more about as the audit, more about helping the developers on what needs to be done. The fourth phase, now operationalize the DevSecOps, like codify the CI and CD and make sure that have a continuous authorization is in place. So if you look at really closely at the ATO process is RMF process looking for those security controllers. If you look at really detailed security controllers are, and 80% of the controllers is the baseline infrastructure component dependencies. If you're able to get 80% done as part of your manifestos or the chef recipes, whatever deployment script that you're using it, then you're doing only maybe 10 or 15% of your ATO based on the code specific. That organization build up that components. Now build up environments like immutable environment, automated environments. Now build up the infrastructure as a code, like dev team is able to build up dev environments as same as in staging environment. And sharing the same artifacts with other team members. Artifacts are, if I'm going to use my environments, an environment can be the same as other team members. So that concept changed a lot as infrastructure piece was covering up all the environment dependencies in it. And introducing a new governance as based on DevSecOps. New governance are putting the security, putting RMF team members into the process. They can keep check any deployment quickly in iterative ways. The next step was the fifth phase, and building up a mature DevSecOps, which basically go live. Now, as soon as when we have changes, so we have an ATO process maybe in an hour, then we can push the changes direct to the production environment. That was the last stage. And the most important here, they were able to build up the lesson learns, put into the documentation, put into the pipeline itself. Because typically in DoD, we have like a 2 years or sometimes 3 years as a person works in the topic that may move somewhere else. To retain the information, requiring you get a lot of lesson learned from the things they were building, pushing the pipeline. How you collect that information is build up a platform that you will get the notes from the wiki pages or SharePoint. Any information goes in the pipeline, recorded somewhere else. It's kind of a building up a continuous learning for the program itself. And also building up a metrics and deploy monitoring, like how can we collect application performance monitoring that goes into the pipeline. So far, we kind of measure the 5 phases, and this is basically an overall level of the building from Waterfall to DevSecOps that goes parallel. So if we kind of summarize everything else, it's a parallel effort, how we do development activities, application architecture that eventually leading into the DevOps component, having a microservices in it, and supporting containerization, you have a cloud agnostic environments. Right? So let's dive into the more DevSecOps initiatives in DoD. That's what the Nick Chaillan and DoD CIO office is pushing from higher up level and to every program in DoD. So what is the DevSecOps initiatives? So it's a joint program under OSD, and DoD CIO Office and US Air Force, and these are military services. And setting up a pipeline, setting up a framework, that framework and pipeline will enable that initiatives from higher up level, from DoD level. And it's based on the container technology and using a Docker or Kubernetes, having a site container in it, and designed for specific taking leverage of reusabilities. So if you remember the ATO process is specifically based on approval, right? If I am able to approve some containers in a higher level, the other CIO level, that same container can be used many other components in the other programs, which is going to cut down a lot of ATO process. And also at the same time, working with other team members in DoD like DAU and build up DevSecOps curriculum, so actively parting of that group too. So what is the real value so far? It's helping us. It's enabling DoD programs across the other services deploy any application easily, in a timely, and having a rapid deployment and developments. Having a common environment as a common tool stack, an approved component of each tool stacks, it's going to help us any other program and take a leverage of it. Right? And another value stuff that comes from the DoD, make sure that if you're able to fix one of the images or any components in the pipeline that we have been utilized, so imagine that if you have a CI pipeline running your program, if you're able to pull up any container from a central repositories, it has been already patched, it will give you as verified version, then you can use your pipeline. Let's say you're using an Apache, or using a Mango and Django stack, right? If it is approved in a higher level and container based, you can use that component in your pipeline, it's ready to good to go. That's going to enable you to deploy quickly, which basically authorizing in once, and you can use as many times as you can. Authorization is going to come from higher level component, basically, from DoD CIO level, or the Air Force CSO level. If it's approved, then you can use the container over and over and again. So what is technologies behind it? And technology is using a DevSecOps pipeline, which is not just DevOps, and building a hardened containers. So I'm sure some of you guys already look at it. The hardened containers is available from this GitHub environment, GitLab environment, basically. You can download it. And based on the container, then you can use over and over and again. And every time we're adding more container into the pipeline, so it's keep adding more. Anybody check that repositories? Anybody aware of it? So it's keep increasing actually every time, and you can see better and better, more container approach than you can use eventually. And also creating a microservices concept of any components. And other things in DoD, we have been seeing a lot, like rewriting the code. And we would like to have more common repositories so we can use the same code basis for any module that has been developed. If you're able to do that, we save a lot of time and money. That again goes back to the ATO process, right? We can leverage any components as Kubernetes and utilizing the defined metrics as part of our components. So I'm just going to quickly go over the tool stacks. I'm sure you already saw that tool stacks. It doesn't really matter what type of tools you're using it. The goal is have this in place, have how you plan it, and how you develop, how you build, how you test, and then how you monitor, how you secure it. So regardless, this stuff is going to be more container-based on left and right side, but the concept is building up a continuous integration using that tool stack. As long as if you follow up all these steps, like how you do the plan, do the right testings, make sure you have an artifact catalog in place. And much closer look at the architecture perspective. So this is a typical architecture we are offering as a DoD level. And we're expecting any program, they can pull up the code repositories from microservices. That's kind of part of DoD programs. Then we're expecting every DevSecOps CI and CD pipeline have container-based. Let's say you have your pipeline ready, and then you can build up and get your container from the DSUP environments. And then eventually, when we build up any artifact catalog, you can pull it and put in your repository you can use over and over and again. And also part of that, we would like to have every containers has the data mechanism. You can collect the data, and using Elasticsearch, other component, we can reuse over and over and again for data perspective. So remember, if you don't know your application performance metrics, you cannot really build up right monitoring on top of it. If you don't have a traceability in your data collection, then how can you go back and analyze anything that is covering up your pipeline? Like, let's say you're going to build up some AI systems, or you have some AI system you build up, then how are you going to make sure that your model is working properly if you don't have a proper modeling component in it? The work is not completed yet. As of today, where we are, so I'm sure you heard about the Defense Science Innovation Board. It specifically came out, software is never done. So now we have the enterprise architect framework. So deep study is more acquisition perspective. There's a 4-line of effort. That 4-line of effort will tailoring acquisition process and building up a digital infrastructure, which is kind of like software factory concept, and also building the workforce, because it's requiring a lot of skill set changes. Remember that 6 years journey, actually, most of them is train the people. Train the people using Agile, train the people how to use the tools, train the people how they build up a microservices concept, train the people how they can understand basic engineering principles. Another parallel effort has been happening right now with the DAU. So I'm actively participating in the DAU DevSecOps Academy program. We delivered so far 2 pilots. We would like to expand it more. And idea is to cover up more than 200,000 people to train the engineering principles of DevSecOps. When I say engineering principles, like how can we convert monolithic application to the microservices? What are the patterns are? And how can we train a project manager, PM offices? How can we train the architects? How can we train the engineers to using this component process? How can we do acquisition component to DevSecOps environment? How to build up an environment? If you're in a position that which tool question you should ask to fill out and pick the right tools, right components. And also the DevOps Enterprise Framework, and it's available, you can download it, and you can Google search it, it's already designed, available. It's gonna tell you what are the principles and components out of DevSecOps framework, and you can use it for your establishing your pipeline. So we have a couple offerings from Air Force, and you may have heard about it, which is a Cloud One Level Up, and these are the capabilities you can use a platform and taking advantage of common infrastructure already available. That's kind of like Cloud One is supporting the AWS Azure Government, which is kind of pay-per-usage components, and you can use it. And same as the Level Up as well. And this is another software factory team, and which is taking leverage of the DoD hardened containers, and you can use it for your own purposes. Are we done? No, actually, we're not done yet. So these are the problems we have been looking for help. It is not the solution yet. Like how can we build up embedded DevOps in real-time embedded systems? So far, if you look at all the DevSecOps journey in DoD, it's all web applications so far, right? Castle Run, all of them is webby. Now, there is a possibility we can do the DevOps principles on embedded systems. It is requiring all your contribution to make that happen. Again, goal is not really deploy quickly every time, but we would like to take advantage of DevOps pieces traceability, right? Requirement traceability. We heard so much traceability. We can do more architecture work. We cannot really fail and learn in the safety critical systems. It is not practical. Like you cannot do the production live testing in DoD. So what are the idea and concept of building up modularities so we can do the more simulated environment testing, more simulation-based testing we can do, so we have a better quality of the work than we don't want to test anything in the production environment. So, and also we're looking for more trained professionals. Even the DAU is not enough to train a lot of people. It is requiring everybody's contribution. It's nice to see people are traveling and understanding the concept. The one thing as a community, especially in DoD, we're not really sharing how we did it in DoD. Like that program, nobody really aware of that program exists in DoD. And I remember the first time when they were talking about DevSecOps and DevOps, it was 5-6 years ago, nobody was believing its possibilities. We really, if you are in a member of the DoD community, we should share our experience. Everybody's dealing with the same problem. AT is the same for everybody. And same as for the architecture, same as for everybody. Acquisition process is the same for everybody. But when it comes to the sharing in DoD, we're not sharing how our journey is. We have to build up sharing mechanisms. And also other things like how we can build up a DevSecOps pipeline that will support AI systems eventually. It's another journey. It's another important factor. Build up your pipeline, make sure eventually your pipeline will utilize any AI components. Are you ready or not? That's it. I'm going to finish up here. This is a quick SCI DevOps page, we kept publishing any repositories for any kind of lesson learned, and some video channels we're publishing as well. And I'm going to go back to another blog post. So if you follow the SCI repositories, you can get more information from SCI website. And I'm going to go back one more time. If you're going to take the pictures, this is the repositories, and you can download it. So we build up the AWS version of the pipeline as a service model, and you can see the building up pipeline is not that really difficult anymore. It's much easier. One click. The big problem is, how can we use effectively of the environments? You should ask that question yourself. How can we use effectively the pipeline we build it that really match in our organization and also architecture components? That's it. I took a lot of time. Thank you. Thanks for listening.